Tax disputes today are like a multidimensional chess game. You have many countries, you have governments with different agendas. The governments themselves are fighting over the same revenue pie, and you have complex laws that change all the time. And at the end of the day, tax disputes are all about evidence and proving your case. So you have a number of dimensions that you need to work with, governments and stakeholders. And then you have the issues of audit committees and shareholders and media. There's so many dimensions you need to manage. It's a very complex piece. The trend today is more tax disputes. Global economy is not in the best shape, so it's one factor. Number two, people think a lot of times the tax dispute is very technical. But when you get to the big international tax issues, like transfer pricing or anti-avoidance, they are gray. And when you combine gray with money, you get disputes.
One thing that's changed recently is the US government has started winning cases more, and it's changing the law. Transfer pricing, for example. The way related party transactions deal with each other, providing services, selling stuff, licensing things. It used to be that the way they were taxed was the arm's length method, what a reasonable seller would charge to a reasonable buyer. That's evolved to a taxation of where customers are located. And if one jurisdiction is taxing you based on where your assets are located, and another jurisdiction is taxing the same transaction based on where the customer is located, you're going to have an inconsistency. And these inconsistencies lead to disputes, and in those dispute situations, you need your tax counsel.
So tax disputes are about proving your case, because the revenue authority normally does not have to prove its case. So you have to justify the transaction, its commercial logic, its rationale, and then to prove the whole value chain that the transaction cuts through. When this is disputed, you don't only have to convince the revenue authority, you also have to convince a judge. So you have to have another layer of robustness and another layer of assurance on top of what you've done already. Because there's a massive difference between preparing for a transaction and then preparing to litigation. And that's where clients need the best support they can.
I don't think ever in my career have I seen tax placed as high on the list of the C-suite. Attention not only of the tax director and the CFO, but the other members of the C-wing and investors.
What is very important for clients? The beginning of a tax dispute is normally the information request from the revenue authority, or they notify you about a review, an audit. There is a starting point. And it's quite useful at that starting point to educate your internal stakeholders, because tax disputes are very different to commercial disputes. So it's quite useful to make sure that your board, your audit committee, your stakeholders internally understand the process that is going to transpire and what we're going to go through. Because once your stakeholders are educated, you will get the internal support as a head of tax or as a general counsel to progress and to advance a dispute. But that internal support is critical from the word go.